Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week, along with special guest, Mrs. Force Ghost Conversations herself, Elise King, we're going to take a deep dive look into the Season 2 episode of The Bad Batch titled Tribe. Before we get started, I'm inviting you to join the conversation with us. We can be found on Twitter and Hive at Force Ghost Pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok just by searching Force Ghost Conversations. We look forward to connecting with you on those platforms. Also, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your listening site of choice. Plus, Force Ghost Conversations is now live on Patreon. And if you're a fan of the podcast and would like to consider pledging your support, there will be a link in the episode description for you to check out the various tiers offered. Finally, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. All right, everyone, welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations, and I'm so thrilled to bring to you this special episode of the podcast with none other than Mrs. Force Ghost Conversations herself, Elise King, to do our weekly Bad Batch discussions. So, because this is a mid-week release episode, there will be no news segment in our appropriately dubbed Cloud City Gossip segment. However, any type of news that have come out this week will be covered in our Sunday show, which will also be our transition to covering Bad Batch episodes released on Sunday at this point. So get ready for that, as we'll get to a more regular schedule of releasing Bad Batch on Sundays heading into the rest of February here. But with all that, I did want to mention that there is a special reason for releasing the podcast today on a Tuesday. And that is, of course, because we are participating in Star Wars Podcast Day 2023. So, a number of podcasts in the Star Wars galaxy across the globe are releasing episodes today in honor of the 24th anniversary of Jedi Talk, the very first Star Wars related podcast, which premiered back on February 7th, 1999. So today, February 7th, 2023, is officially the 24th anniversary of that release date. So we're thrilled to support the movement here, and we're very happy to be a part of Podcast Day 2023 for Star Wars, and hope to be a part of them for many more days in the future. And we're excited to bring you discussion. So just on the other side of this break here, we'll be back with our analysis, deep dives, and overall discussion about the Bad Batch episode called Tribe. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations on this special Star Wars podcast day. And I couldn't think of anyone better to bring in to discuss the Bad Batch. You know her. She's been a wonderful guest on the last couple of weeks for the Bad Batch discussions. You already know who it is. It's Mrs. Force Ghost Conversations, Elise King. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. It's me again.
It's you, and we're thrilled to have you back, because who else will we have for our wonderful Bad Batch analysis, which we really appreciate your voice and insights when it comes to
I'd be insulted
if
you chose anyone else for this
exactly.
particular IP.
We would not be able to proceed otherwise, and I'd have to think about my own health and situation.
Yes, you would. Yes.
Well, yeah, Bad Batch Tribe. Let's cut right to the chase here.
The stakes are getting higher.
Gunji is alive.
I know this was like the one thing at Celebration last year where everyone was like,
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I just cut to the chase right there. Spoiler alert for anybody at home. You've been warned. We're already in it now. It's too late. He made it through Order 66.
He did.
And that's
alone.
And he's made it his way. Here's a speculatory question.
Will they probably write a book about his journey?
Maybe. But do you have any speculation as to how he survived?
I mean, I think someone smuggled him out.
Okay.
If he was on Coruscant,
Maybe.
if he wasn't, I think.
What's your headcanon right now?
What's your headcanon? Because I know you have one. I know you're asking me for a reason.
Mace Windu's not actually dead.
Oh my god.
No, I think he's definitely.
Unfortunately, even if Windu wasn't dead, I don't think his first thing would be to help younglings.
He would no, especially a Wookiee youngling.
Yeah.
He. I'm gonna guess that he was perhaps off war, not on Coruscant. That's gonna be my guess.
Yeah.
He was probably doing something else, a part of some mission
I don't
elsewhere.
think he was on a ship. I think he was on a world.
I think he was probably with another Jedi, kind of similar to how Cal Kestis makes it out in Fallen Order, where
Okay.
another Jedi sacrifices themselves so that they can keep going.
Yeah.
And then he just was scrappy along the way until he got to this point in time. That's probably the best answer right now.
Yeah, I see him being a stowaway on a lot of ships.
Mhm.
I think he probably there's like a I don't want to say viciousness, but there's a fierceness to him
Mhm.
that we didn't know. Like
Yeah,
he's seen
yeah.
stuff, his innocence is gone. He's probably had to do things against what he found to be the Jedi Order way.
Yeah.
He's probably had to steal, lie.
In his defense, too, I think he is probably older than what we would consider a youngling, like age. Like I think the aging of a Wookiee is vastly different because like Chewie's like 200 years old.
That's
so
true.
like he could be like a Grogu of 50
Yeah.
technically and still look like a child.
A child, yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good
perhaps some experience has helped him in that regard. I mean, we don't know. We're
We don't-
speculating
yeah,
at this
it's
point,
like
but
100% up in the air.
yeah, exactly.
I could see it as a comic series, probably.
Maybe. Well, if the audience keeps clamoring for it, I don't think Lucasfilm will turn down money. But
No, but yeah, it was like watching. It wasn't like watching a kid Jedi fight. It was watching a Jedi fight.
yeah,
on
he
Kashyyyk.
seemed a bit more attuned with his abilities rather than some other Jedi that we've seen at that quote unquote same age.
Yeah. It was great seeing him, of course, but I also love Kashyyyk.
Yeah, it's
So
a great planet.
I think it's just such a beautiful planet.
Mhm,
I love
mhm.
how the Wookiees interact with their environment. I really liked it even when you were playing the game
Oh,
Fallen
Fallen Order,
Order.
yeah.
And you got to go to the world. I was like, this is just such a cool world.
Mhm,
It's so beautiful and like luscious, and so it was just nice to be there again.
Well, yeah, that's great. I'm glad that Kashyyyk's back into the fold. And I'll have some questions later on about the overall Kashyyyk-ness of it all, I guess, if you will. But
I was surprised to hear that the clones had such an affinity for the Wookiees,
yeah, I mean, it sounds like they had missions before.
where
There.
they partnered with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the Battle and Revenge of the Sith, so it would make sense that there was some presence there.
That's true, because that's where Yoda was, right?
That's where Yoda was, and 3-year Clone War. Who knows how much?
Kashyyyk wasn't. They obviously had a presence there with the war. They didn't get to escape it.
Exactly. And who knows what Palpatine's plans were, pulling the strings on both sides, if he knew from the start that he wanted to kind of enslave the Wookiee population.
Makes me so mad to think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, no species should be enslaved, but like Wookiees are so like regal, you know?
Yeah,
I know their sounds are funny, but like how they carry themselves, even in Rebels.
Yes.
Audience, I'm sorry, my brain is dragging today. Even in Rebels, you could tell like how they interact with each other, like how they hold themselves. I don't know. It's just like it's really heartbreaking to see them in chains.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. So, but speaking of hard, it's an awfully big risk for the Bad Batch to interfere with the Gungi situation. They're first dealing with these people that they're trying to make a deal with on this the Vanguard Axis group, and then of course later taking him to Kashyyyk. Like they're getting involved in a lot of things that maybe they wouldn't have at the beginning of the season. So do you think that they were right to get involved in this scenario, or should they have just kind of like, this isn't our business, we're gonna let it go?
No, I mean, I think like as a watcher, you're like, oh my gosh, it's a kid. You have to get involved. I think it's especially, I think it helped that Echo was the one that was held back on the ship with Omega
Mm-hmm.
instead of anyone else. Just because I think, who was it that said, like, was that Echo who said, like, oh, we fought with them in the past, they're our allies?
I think it was Tech.
Was it Tech?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, yeah, it was Echo. So obviously, like, I think Echo kind of is driven to that larger goal. I don't think
Mhm.
any of the Bad Batch could have sat by and been like,
Well, yeah, what was
let's see
interesting
him,
is
let's see
that
this kid be enslaved. It's fine.
Hunter was so quick to, he didn't even think twice about it in the moment, which he was the most apprehensive of all the group to be like, I don't want to, we can't get involved with this stuff. We have to protect Omega. And this is a clear,
I think because it's Wookiees.
yeah.
None of them, like,
okay.
it wasn't, I think Echo probably jumps in faster, but I think they all were willing pretty quickly because they're Wookiees and the experience they've had with them. And I mean, seeing anyone enslaved, I think hopefully would just bubble up some intense feeling where
Mhm.
you're like, we
Mhm.
can't just let this happen.
So do you think this is an evolution for Hunter in his overall, like where he was at in episode 1 of the season? Or is this just a one-off instance where he saw a child in danger and said, I have to help in this moment in time, but every other instance is not necessarily going to be the same choice?
I personally think consciously he's compartmentalizing. He's saying, we're not part of a bigger resistance. We are helping this one person.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate and value our relationship with the Wookiees. They've been good to us. We will be good to them. But I think deeper down, subconsciously, at some point, Echo's going to be like, or someone is going to say, Hunter, we've done X, we've done Y, we've done Z. We're not working with the Empire anymore. We need to face the facts that we are working against them.
Yeah, so someone's going to pull up the PowerPoint presentation and lay it in clear, concrete terms to Hunter that they actually have been doing more than he said that they should be doing. And he's like, okay, this will jog.
It's very much like Cassian in the sense of like, I don't think they're as selfishly focused as Cassian is.
That's a great, interesting point. Yeah,
but I think it's very much like Cassian, where it's like, I'm not part of the rebellion, but oh, I've just stolen for them.
Yeah, I don't like the Empire, but I'm not getting involved in the larger.
And it's like, really? Because literally everything you've done, if you look at it from a big, like, bird's eye view, you're against them. It's just you've built a canon or a narrative in your head that says otherwise. And I think that's kind of what Hunter is doing. But I don't think the Bad Batch are people to be like, that's someone else's problem. But I think I wrote down, I think it's become very clear, like we all have roles in life and we all play a role, especially when we get into group dynamics. And Omega is the protector.
Yeah, Omega is the one that instigates all this.
She instigates it all the time. She can't help herself. She also protects, like, is fiercely protective of the Bad Batch themselves. So I was like, this is Omega once again stepping up and showing she's a protector. I personally, even when the Bad Batch is finished, will be very sad if we don't eventually one day get a story of where Omega goes beyond the Bad Batch.
I would guarantee you that's going to be something that comes up at some point in the future.
She just seems like someone to insert herself too importantly.
Yeah, I just can't imagine that they've created this female character that they're just going to drop.
Yeah, but I think having Omega around provokes more of those instincts to get involved than maybe the Bad Batch would have done if she wasn't around.
Interesting.
Do you think differently?
I agree with all of that. My thought is this is all very fine and convenient when they're on boots on the ground right there. But if Sid were to come up to them and say, like, I have this job for you, you have to go save this Wookiee. Yeah. I don't know if they would necessarily say, like, yeah, we're going to do that.
No, because I think probably when they're looking at it from a job, there's no human element there. There's no empathy involved until Omega's like, guys.
Yeah. She didn't hesitate at all. And she would probably say, like, yes, we have to help them, whereas I think Hunter would probably at that moment be more reserved than what he was in this episode. The closeness of it all really helped, I think, but maybe there's still some growth for him at the end of the day.
I wrote it in my notes at the very end of the episode. I was like, Hunter is still holding on to this dream. That they can be free.
Yeah, that they can be free and let the Empire coexist.
That even the Wookiees in that village can be free.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, we know it doesn't end well.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen Avatar, the second one, but it's like when there are interests in a place, right? It's not like they're just going to abandon that.
Especially in a resource-rich
Yeah, you
world.
lose once, and it's not like so. This Trandoshan leader, gets killed, and a couple squadrons of stormtroopers are gone, and all that. But like, it's not like the Empire is just going to stop because they got defeated once on Kashyyyk, like
with a bunch of Trandoshan, guns for hire. It looks
like they're not going to. In fact, it might, and we see it in Fallen Order where they come back in full force and they go to town. And
I think probably Hunter in his brain is like, whoa, we did a good thing for this one group, and still holding on to this dream that like they can. Because I mean, I think he says something at the end of the episode that's like, oh, hopefully a world in which we have peace,
free from war, or something.
Free from war, and I'm like, do you know what world you're living in? World is coming to you.
It's like, dude, we know what happens.
Like we've seen this. The grip gets tighter. What does what's his face from Andor say? Like oppression, like it's all about control. It's all about gripping the throat.
Yeah, the closer they tighten their grip, the more that slip through.
And right now, like we're not at the slipping through part. We're at the constricting of the fist. So I was just like, oh, Hunter still like is believing. He puts stock in what he thinks he can create for Omega and for his family, but
right.
That reality is gone. It's dead.
He has to let that go and mourn it.
I don't think he's let it go yet.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say too, and I think in this episode you probably found it pretty prevalent as well, but this episode is literally all about a major central theme to Star Wars, which is found family. And I know that it's one of your favorite tropes as well.
I love it.
Did you have any thoughts or notes about its usage in this episode?
No, other than like the general theme. I mean, it's always heartwarming, right? That Gungi just got immediately accepted, even though he poses a huge risk to the tribe.
It's very, but they're living in risk already.
Yeah, but still, like to have there's a whole Inquisitor force dedicated, and there's rumors now.
Yeah, they're probably gonna get. Yeah, I didn't think about that one. They're gonna get an Inquisitor probably sent to them.
Yeah, and there's now rumors there of them being able, like people can still see what lightsaber, in the truck they had like the lightsaber track, right? Of like, look at that, it looks like a lightsaber.
Yeah, it's the word's out.
Yeah, there's going to be rumors.
The fifth brother is coming soon.
Yeah, like it's. But they sat there and like they were immediately able to take him in. It also made me a little sad that Jedi are taken so young.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, wow, he's missed his whole like.
He doesn't know anything about his culture.
Culture connection. Especially with how spiritual they are and like with their surroundings. I was like, that's a natural connection to the Force that the whole tribe has.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's a different conversation. Why? Absolutely. Did you have any specific thoughts about found family?
Yes, and so what you said plus the episode is called Tribe overall, so I think that kind of adds itself to that mix.
Yeah.
I think Omega saw herself a little bit in Gungi, which is why she was able to empathize with him so much, and why she wanted to connect him with the family. And again, very grateful that they accepted him. Yeah. They could have easily said, you're not a part of our tribe. But what it reminded me of a lot is the great line from Solo, Solo Star Wars story, when they're having that campfire scene before they do the train heists.
Yeah.
And they ask Chewie what he's going to do next. And he's like, I'm going to find my family / tribe, right? The word is the same in Shuriwook, I guess, the Wookiee language. And Han had trouble translating it. And Beckett was like, well, what's the difference, right? It's all the same. Like your family is your tribe is your family. And I just love that concept being explored further. It just is neat too. It's the same connection of a Wookiee. So it's like almost this universal planet-wide culture in a way.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's a nice thought. I didn't even remember that connection to Solo.
I'm always thinking about Solo.
I know.
So.
If anyone can bring it back, you can. I think it's also interesting, like from a strategic point of view, they now have made another important contact on a different world. Their network
and
is
they know a Jedi
growing.
Yeah, it's been a while since they've seen a Jedi.
Yeah. I want to say a final thing about Gungi and specifically was after reading the High Republic series and understanding how the Force is felt and seen and experienced differently within Jedi, it was really cool to see him be able to empathetically connect with animals on the world.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I know, because like on the TV shows and movies, you're like, oh, everyone can do that. But we learned from High Republic, like that's very difficult for some Jedi to do.
Yeah.
And it's because some Jedi have higher empathy levels or capabilities than others. And I was like, oh, Gungi is extremely empathetic because he can easily connect with animals, which is a tough thing for some people to do. But then also you can see his trauma because he is fiercer and fights more offensively than Jedi, like from the High Republic series, were taught. But then it also made me remember, like, he grew up in a Clone War.
He did.
So he saw Jedi being super offensive in their fighting style. So I was like, wow, I think that was like the books were really important coming in to like give added context now that I understand how the Force is used a little bit more than just what's on screen.
Yeah, the through line between Burryaga and Gungi is clear.
Yeah, I was like, whoa. And I wonder if like Wookiees in general, I mean, 2 people isn't enough to make a blanket statement, but like, I wonder if because of their connection to their surroundings, if they also just have higher empathy levels.
I mean, it tracks for me right now.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Wookiees, and we talked a little bit about the Trandoshans before, but I found it especially diabolically brilliant that the Empire is using the Trandoshans to essentially, enslave the Wookiees and to burn down the planet of Kashyyyk. I mean, did you have any notes on that one?
No, I was going to ask you. I was like, I can't remember why they chose Trandoshans.
Oh, they have natural hatred for each other.
Okay, I couldn't remember who the slave people are.
You may remember from the Clone Wars that arc where they actually like caught the Wookiees and then used them as like a hunting.
Oh, that's right. I can't. Why do they hate each other?
I guess they've been capturing them for hunting for all these years, and that's just a natural thing. And then in Book of Boba Fett, we saw Chrysanthemum rip the arm off of the Trandoshans, continuing that trend.
Who's the slaver population? Remember
the Zygarians?
The Zygarians.
Yeah.
Okay, I was getting that canon confused in my head, but the Zygarians are like cat looking.
Kind of, right? Yeah.
I mean, I think it's brilliant. It's what we see from the Empire as they move away from a clone army. It's like they don't need clones. They're going to use natural adversaries.
Yeah, why waste their own resources?
And then also recruit people because also recruiting people into an army is a great way to like capture the mind and narrative of people. Yeah,
the Trandoshans already want to do that. So why not let them do that?
Yeah, and just pay them.
Yeah, why waste
trinkets of money?
Why waste your own resources and money when you don't have to? I guess it's just smart, efficient for the Empire. I mean, historically, that tracks too.
And then they're not the villains.
Exactly.
They can weave whatever narrative they want
if they want to. I mean,
I don't think they
control
care,
all the Senate.
But I think they could.
It was the Trandoshans that were mining Kashyyyk for its natural resources.
We came in to at least make
the Empire was good.
Yeah.
We have peace on
Kashyyyk.
We have peace on Kashyyyk now. So yeah, Wookiee culture and heritage is really on full display in this episode. I mean, it's really great for world building, if you ask me.
Have we ever gotten like a greater look at it?
Not to this extent, other than the holiday special.
I don't even count it. I can't.
So, what do you make of like the tree motif? Like they were able to like literally connect with a tree, which is cool, I thought.
I mean, you know me and my environmental activism veins in my body. I was like, there's something so satisfying of being like, yeah, the trees are fighting back, man. Especially because it's like built on reality of what our world experiences in terms of how trees communicate via mycelium and fungi networks. It's like we've learned that trees, quote unquote, talk to each other. They can feel
Yeah, of course.
They divert natural resources away from themselves to protect other trees. Like, they're not sentient, but they're not dead.
Mm-mm.
They're living in a very unique sense. And so I love, to me, it's almost, I would love to be able to be in a world where we're connected so closely. And I think there are groups of people in our world that are that connected to nature like that.
Yeah.
But so I love seeing it play out in a different way. And I also find it very satisfactory that like people and we always try and control around us, and like nature at the end will always win.
And I love that you said that, because my next thought was like, in the end, Kashyyyk literally heals itself in a way.
Mm-hmm.
The spider-like creatures, the Kinraths, defeat the Trandoshan leader and give him a horrible going out party, if you ask
That's
me.
a slow death.
Yeah, that was brutal. And is this an instance, a symbiotic nature of a community working together, literally?
I mean, I think you answered your own question.
I think it's the answer. Yeah, yeah.
And I think like even we see in Fallen Order, eventually like Kashyyyk's still there. It might be ravaged, but it'll come back.
Yeah,
it'll come back.
Yeah, I would love to know what Kashyyyk is like after the Empire.
Yeah.
Once they are technically freed, and not enslaved anymore.
Any and all stories on that world.
I know that Han goes back there in a book post Return of the Jedi.
Oh, interesting.
But I have to revisit that to jog my memory on how it actually looks and is, and how they rebuild and whatnot. So
okay,
that'd be intriguing.
Yeah.
More on that later. So you've hinted at this a little bit here, but it's dark, really. I mean, the episode ends hopeful and on a good note, but the future is really bleak for the Wookiees, and I think that you hit the nail on the head here, that this Wookiee tribe is really going to have their work cut out for them, because an Inquisitor is coming. What are your thoughts about Gunji's story next? Do you think he's able to find his way out of another tussle here, or does he get it? He is really a double negative going. You talk about a double negatives going against you, where he is both a Wookiee and a Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel too great about it. I mean, the good news is like they're going so deep into the jungle, no one knows it better than them.
Mm-hmm.
You just hope that they can wait out the Empire. Now, do I know if Gunji is one to stay?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I honestly, I don't like, by the time we get to Luke becoming a Jedi, the Jedi are forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
No one remembers. So even if they're alive, they've hidden that part of themselves so deeply that like, if you are really a Force user and you have to hide that part of yourself, it's just sad. Like, it's just not a good story. Well, I don't feel super.
I don't feel great about it either. But I will say, for 10 years now, I had in my head that Gunji was killed in Order 66. Like, all those kids that are on that gathering arc in the Clone Wars, I was like, they're all gone.
I mean, a theme from all of the stories we've seen recently is like, people survive.
Yeah, the resilience is there,
popping up, but I don't know, the future, fast forward another 10 years, seems so bleak that I don't know. I am hopeful he's alive. I am also sad for him if he is, because it means he's cut off such a fundamental part of himself to do that.
Oof.
Yeah,
you were like, what? Next episode's gonna really break our hearts and be dark and all that stuff, and it didn't necessarily break our hearts on screen, but it's what's not said that really is tragic and dark.
That being said, I made a lot of notes about fun things from the episode.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, if we want to lighten the mood.
I love the calming sounds at the end of the episode, just like nature.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I want a scenescape.
Like a lo-fi
Kashyyyk.
kind of thing. Yeah, I think they have that.
They do?
on the Star Wars YouTube page. I know you've been into those of late.
Oh, you'll have to find it for me.
Okay, I will.
Okay, I have 5 things that I thought were fun, 5 things I thought were fun about the episode.
Ooh, go for it.
1, I like that Omega gave Gunji a Star Wars Lunchable, a lunchbox full of things.
And it's similar to what Luke opens up in Empire when he's on Dagobah and tries to eat.
Oh, I'll have to take a look at it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's space travel, but Lunchable
It looks
style.
so much like what someone in the 70s would think of, like, oh, this is futuristic space food. This is how you would eat in space. Yep, agreed.
Part of me, like the 90s kid who freaking thought Lunchables were the coolest thing to eat, even though they were trash, looking at it from a food perspective.
They tasted great, so that's all that mattered.
They were just so special.
Yeah, and you felt like you were an adult in a way.
Yeah, I was like, oh, cool. I was like, oh, Gunji's lucky he gets a Lunchable. I love hearing. I can't remember if it was Hunter or someone else, but they said, Gunji, put away your laser sword.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love non-Jedi referring to Jedi things and getting it totally wrong, but it's like that's what you would call it.
Hey,
it's
a right, and Jedi have called it laser swords too, so it's all in good fun.
I immediately, when we got to Kashyyyk, I was like, those are some Harry Potter spider webs we're seeing in the world.
Yeah, what's it, Aragog?
The giant, I forget what the spiders are called, but I was like, yikes.
And they've had a lot of spiders in Star Wars, like, because the Mandalorian had that full episode of nothing but spiders. So
I mean, what's scarier? I mean, there's a lot of scary things, but like
a big spider is a really innate fear that a lot of people have.
Yeah, I'm not scared of them, but like to have giant legs and a lot of eyes looking at you would be quite intense. Yes. Speaking of animals, I loved the animals that the Wookiees rode.
Yeah, they didn't say exactly what they're called.
I thought they kind of were like giant Lothcats.
In a way. There were some big boys.
I was like, I really want this plush animal. I want it.
Also, where's my ride at Galaxy's Edge? Just like, get me on the back of one. Yeah.
Jumping through Kashyyyk. It would be a beautiful world to go to.
It would be. It would be a lot of fun.
We did Star Tours. I wish we could pick going to Kashyyyk.
I've done it before on Star Tours.
Was it cool?
Yeah, it's just sweet.
But I was like, oh, I want that plush and I want it to be giant so our niece can ride it.
Ulterior motives.
The giant Lothcat with the because the ears would be so fun because they flop around.
And she would have no look on her face.
Yeah, for the audience, our niece, like when she experiences anything new, she just has like
deadpan face. Yeah,
she's just like, you can tell she's trying to decide if she likes it.
I don't know if I like it, and you're gonna be left hanging until.
And then like 10 days later, she'll be like, I love it, but you don't know. You don't know. My final thing was when Gunji and Omega were fighting together. I thought they looked really cool, and they had like kind of struck a pose, like a Black Widow pose. They like hit the ground after a jump, and then they pose, and I was like, that could be a cool comic or T-shirt or something.
Put that on a T-shirt, right?
That was one of the things where I was like, wow, Omega's really grown, Gunji's really grown.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, they're not babies anymore. They're
doing their own thing.
Yeah, the world has aged them.
The world has aged them indeed, and thank you for sharing your top 5, Elise. I think this is a great segment that we should continue for future episodes if you're able to.
Yeah, I always have little notes. I just thought those were fun elements to kind of cut the like really serious nature of the ramifications of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Elise, that was excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all of that and for sharing your insights throughout this episode. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add as we conclude this episode of the podcast?
No, we're starting to see the ramp up.
Are you going to make your prediction for next week again, too? The same one? What are we going to do next week, Brain? I don't know. Take over the world.
I could see another Crosshair episode next week.
Maybe.
I don't know, but I think we're seeing the ramp up of, all right, we've established more relationships. We're going to start having deeper discussions.
It's episode 7, I believe, of the season. So
next week?
I think so.
Okay.
So 8 will be midway through. So usually 7, 8, 9, 10 is where they do kind of like a real transition into the second half.
Yeah.
So maybe this is where it ramps up into like whatever the main story that they're trying to tell is.
You know what I want?
What's that?
I want some conflict within the group.
I think we have that a little bit.
We've seen rumblings.
Rumblings?
I want some arguments.
You want some real you want them to flip tables and...
No, I just want I want to see them interact in a new way. I want to see how they deal with having to make hard choices that aren't that are inflicted on them, but not like in a crisis moment, because they come together so well in a crisis moment. But like they're gonna have to make some choices, and I want to see how they figure that out, and I want to see the group dynamics.
Well, maybe that comes to pass next week.
Yeah,
we'll have to find out, and you'll be along for the ride.
I will.
You'll be back next week, and of course, the episodes will be transitioning to a Sunday release schedule, as no longer doing 2 episodes a week until Mandalorian starts.
Yep, get a break.
Get a little bit of a break here on Forest Coast Conversations, technically, even though we're not going anywhere. We're just going back to one episode a week here. So get ready for that. Be sure to look for us in your podcast feeds in the next couple of weeks here. And thanks for listening to our special presentation for Star Wars Podcast Day 2023. I know that I'll be listening to a lot of different shows on this day, so be sure to check out all of your favorite Star Wars podcasts who are participating and to give them support as well. If you're loving Force Coast Conversations, be sure to leave us a rating, a review, subscribe to the podcast, do all that fun stuff. It really helps to grow the podcast in various organic ways. Also, if you feel so inclined, we now have launched a Patreon, and you can find that within the show notes of this episode. So if you find a tier that you like and you want to get some extra goodies from Force Coast Conversations throughout the month, feel free to do so. And we'd love to continue growing the community via that method as well. And lastly, I just want to plug our TeePublic store again, because we do have some new merchandise items for sale on that platform. So if you're loving Forest Coast Conversations and you feel so inclined to wear our logos and merchandise around the globe, wherever you're at, feel free to check that out. I know they do sales every so often. So you can take advantage of all of that. And if you really want to wear Force Coast Conversations at, say, an upcoming convention, a Star Wars Celebration in Europe, if you're heading out that way in April, now's the time to buy it so you get it in time. So with that, everybody, we'll be back on Sunday discussing the new Bad Batch episode for the week. Until then, may the Force be with you. Take care.